Hi, Roger. I'm just getting us all set up.
Jen, I see that there are two entries on the screen, both of which have the same Town of Alta logo. Are they actually both you?
Yes, I'm running to be able to it makes it easier for me that way, because then showing screen on one and the way the camera interacts and all that sort of stuff, it's much easier for me to just have two different systems up and running. Hi, Carolyn.
Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Good.
Good. I'm just going to try and figure out my background here a little bit.
Carolyn, here's a cool background.
For whatever reason, I'm having trouble finding.
It's in your video down in the bottom left.
Oh, you mean the video? It says stop video. I could stop the video.
No, if you click on that little up, I think there's a caret. Oh, thought that's where it was, and you could go in there and change.
Oh yeah, it says choose virtual background.
There you go.
Okay, but you got that nice flag.
Your background.
You know, that's the one that Sarah Gibbs promoted or
right
facilitated for ACE. I thought it's a pretty neat flag.
It is pretty cool. Well, I definitely want.
Is it actually behind you, Roger, or it's virtual, right?
It is virtual, yeah. I just took a picture of it and loaded it in.
Okay.
Very good, Roger. Like 10 steps ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Sheridan.
Hi, Piper. Hi, Carolyn.
Hey, Sheridan.
That's a classy sweater you have on, Sheridan.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. Like that background, Mayor.
Yeah. Do you recognize what it is?
Looking good.
I think Sarah et al. Did a very nice job of selecting a flag for ACE, I guess, really for the whole town. It's, I think it's just the right simplicity and colors, and it gets it.
Hi, Jen.
Mayor.
Who's calling?
Piper is, I just got a copy of the resolution, the CWC resolution appointing you. So when that comes the time, I can share that. It's a one, yeah, we don't really have to share it. Remember, it's just us taking a vote to accept it. So I just wanted to let you know I had that.
Okay, good. Okay, well, we got 3 more minutes until the meeting officially starts, so I'll just hang on till then.
Piper, I'm trying to blur my background like you have, and I can't find that thing for some reason.
Not all computers have the same functionality, Carolyn. So if you're in where I told you to go, the option should be very obvious right there if you have that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So it's like a little bit weird.
Have you used it before? Another?
Oh yeah, I use it all the time, and
Oh.
so it's just kind of weird that I'm a little bit confused.
This green screen makes me look like I'm the guy from the Hale-Bopp comet who left the video behind.
Oh yeah,
Remember that?
exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was thinking more Wizard of Oz-ish.
Lost in space.
Wizard of Oz, man.
I'll come up with something better for the next meeting.
I actually know a little bit about the Hale-Bopp comet, but that's probably not what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, they all drank the Kool-Aid, right? And then they went for a ride on the Hale-Bopp comet and left.
I'm talking about the scientists, not the entertainers.
Not the cult. Yeah.
Okay, well, we got all the staff here, and we momentarily had Mike Mon, who may have come and gone.
It looks like Mike's on the attendees list and Jen just moves attendees over into the panelist list when it's their turn to talk. And we can talk about, once we start the parking discussion, I think we might as well just ask Mike to join, bring Mike into the meeting at that point.
Yes, thanks, Chris, for clarifying.
Are there other attendees? Jim?
We do. Karen Travis is with us, and we had someone else, but they might have dropped off now.
Okay, well, it's 12:30. Welcome to the first Alta Town Council meeting of 2022. And I'm sorry, it's not 12:30. It's 12:30 somewhere, but it's 3:30 here. This meeting is an electronic meeting without an anchor location pursuant to determinations made on the 5th of January, essentially to provide for the health and safety of our community. There are two big deals going on right now. One is confined to us, namely parking, and the other is confined to the whole world, namely the pandemic. So we're going to start off with a work session on parking and ask Chris Cawley and Mike Morey to speak to that. So if they would like to proceed, whoever would like to start.
Well, I think I'm in line for that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did talk to Roger about a half an hour ago and confess that I don't have a formal presentation today. I have some notes that I will I may pass off to the town clerk to include in the official record so that there's something a little bit more sort of legible, something more like a formal document in the record of the meeting. Parking has been really a stream of consciousness issue for several of us at the town and some others of us in Alta for the past, really for the past 6 months or so, but in particular for the past 2 or 3. A lot has transpired in the last month since the town council last met on December 8th and was composed of 60% of the town council was different membership at that point. So please stop me or call on Mike, remind me to let Mike Morey or Mike Munn speak at any point here. We do have like a couple different items on this work session agenda, but I think we have agreed that we can make this whole parking discussion, our parking agenda item, more of a discussion than a series of presentations. So I would recommend we include Mike Munn in the meeting at this point so that he can chime in as necessary. And of course, Mike Morey, feel free to speak up at any point and fill in any blanks that I might leave. So, so like I said, a lot has changed since December 8th. We approached the December 8th meeting with the goal of, presenting an agreement between the town and the ski area to manage a kind of a parking program for kind of local town of Alta constituents who frequently use off-site parking, kind of in central Alta, the north side parking areas as we've come to describe them. We did not identify terms prior to that meeting that we both supported, so we didn't bring one to the council at that point. There were a couple other big ticket items that were outstanding at that point, namely a special use permit from the Forest Service and some kind of permit or statement of consent from UDOT to operate a parking management program, on National Forest System lands and Highway 210, which is where we're now operating a program. Absent that, the ski area was winding up to open its first weekend of parking reservation of the parking reservation requirement. So on like I think it was December 17th, the Friday before that first weekend of reservation requirements, the ski area collected a bunch of license plate information from town of Alta residents, residential property owners, business operators, and employees, and some other folks to put in the parking management system that's in use in Alta presently, so that folks would not be cited for not having a ski area reservation when parking in ski area parking lots. And that's kind of when we started moving people towards using the north side of SR 210 as one parking area. Sometime around then, the town kind of finally decided that we should proceed to apply to the Forest Service for special use permit to operate a parking management program on forest lands outside the ski area permit boundary. You may know that those north side parking areas across from the Snow Pine and across from the Alta Lodge and the Rustler, that's all, well, much of that is National Forest System lands. Some of it is on town of Alta owned property. But at any rate, we got that permit like just before midnight on December, I think it was December 17th, the Friday before the first day that the ski area required reservations. It was an act of incredible expedience for the federal government to proffer that special use permit, but they did. So we had the paperwork in hand, and attached to that paperwork, we had really kind of the template for the parking management program that is in effect today. And that we've been describing all summer. So that was a major milestone that was kind of remarkable. We were able to crest on time and under budget. On Christmas Eve, the town and the ski area reached a pretty narrow agreement to offer a number of parking permits equivalent to the number of parking spaces within north side parking areas under each entity's management. So the ski area is managing parking on its special use permit like it always has, and the town is managing parking under on its own property and on lands, on National Forest System lands that it has been permitted by the forest, to operate this program on. We agreed to each offer kind of a different types of permit products to this, put them in a pool. So we have a few different kinds. We have a seasonal overnight permit that sort of has no extra benefits. It gets you the right to park one car in northside parking areas at a time. It doesn't have extra benefits, but it also doesn't, there are no sort of additional requirements upon the permittee. There's another flavor that comes with an option to make reservations in the interstate parking system. Interstate parking is the vendor under contract to Alta Ski Area in the town to operate this system. But folks who have those permits need to use them and show they've used them 75 nights per year. And then there's a final permit type, and that is this kind of flexible permit that really comes from the platform that Alta Ski Area and Interstate Parking built throughout the summer. And that is it's a flexible permit that allows the holder to make up to 75 reservations per year to park vehicles on the north side. And that allows a little bit more flexibility to bring a family up in multiple vehicles at a time. But it does have it does require that the whole permit holder make a reservation anytime they want to park on the north side. And it does have it's not a cap, but you can make 75 of these reservations, and then you have to pay an additional fee to make additional one-time reservations. So that was Christmas Eve. We finalized an allocation of 95 overnight permits, about 30-day use permits. We kind of put those in the pool. The ski area put an additional number of permits in the pool. And then again, on Christmas Eve, the ski area contacted eligible permittees, somewhat on the town's behalf, to request their preferences among those types of permits that I just described. And that was kind of the beginning of our parking program implementation just before Christmas Eve, as the holiday period began. Early in the week after Christmas, we finally executed a contract with Interstate Parking, this parking management vendor, the first draft of which was produced in September, I believe. And so Interstate is now under contract to the town to offer these permits and to enforce the permit requirement in these town managed areas outside of the ski area permit boundary. With the late arrival and an agreement between that narrow agreement I described a moment ago between the town and the ski area, and then our getting under contract with Interstate so late in the game made it so that we didn't have signage in place. We weren't able to place an order for signage in order to enforce the permit requirement until I believe yesterday. I believe the signage arrived and was installed by Interstate Parking and the town. And so as of today, I believe we're prepared to start enforcing that permit requirement on the town managed areas. And finally, I believe that Interstate Parking should be contacting the eligible permit holders we've sort of put into the system to collect payment for these parking permits. And the parking permits do cost $250. That's something that we identified back in, I believe, October, when the town council adopted a fee schedule amendment to provide for one-time day use permits, as well as a $250 seasonal permit fee. So that's where we are today. That concludes my stream of consciousness update on parking. I can see that I think a hand was raised there. So I don't know, Roger, if you want to turn it over to anybody else.
Chris, I had one little addendum to that. I don't know if
Sure.
you wanted to talk about the early parking component.
Sure. Yes. So
I can take it if you want.
sure. Yeah, I was trying to rewind the tape in my head a little bit, but if you want to go with it, that's great.
Yeah. So really, there's been a lot of discussion back and forth between the town and the ski area about confining early morning parking. It is true that both the UDOT and the Alta ski area plow crews have enormous difficulty making the town available to residents, businesses, and recreationalists when they're in conflict with arriving traffic at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. So the short version of where we ended up was the creation of a early morning reservation product that the ski area is providing 30 spaces into, and the town's providing an additional 30 spaces into, generally on the south side of Flagstaff between the Alta Lodge and the Rustler Lodge, and then also on what we're calling the Wildcat Shoulder, which is the south roadside edge west of the Deep Powder House. And those products are available by reservation at a $15 cost.
Okay. The other player in this is Mike Mon, who, okay. And he's got his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to kind of give a little overview from our perspective is, when we implemented the concept of paid parking or reservations for parking to help us manage demand here in the canyon, because we have too many people coming at certain times and we can accommodate. We started last spring, and at that point in time, the idea was we would, recognizing the town didn't have enough parking to accommodate all of the business needs and residents and cabin owners. We had started with this idea of taking some of the parking out of the special use permit and putting it under town control. And as we worked through that through the summer, there became some obstacles or challenges with the UDOT and the Forest Service that kind of got in the way. And we got pretty late in the game, almost a month before we were going to implement, and still hadn't really resolved a lot on the north side parking. At that point in time, we had determined at the ski area we needed to get more involved in trying to help accommodate the needs of the businesses and the cabin owners and the residents. So we kind of took management of that back and then kind of started working with the town on the idea of, let's make this section all north side parking, and you can have permits in that area that meet your requirements, and we can have permits in our area that we can do under our permit system. But let's let the people park anywhere. Let them park in the most convenient spot, and recognizing that most of the residents and cabin owners wanted to park in Grizzly, and most of the lodges and guests there would want to park adjacent to their lodges. So that's kind of the direction we've worked, and that's been our goal, is try to accommodate all of those users. What's been interesting for us is, as we've implemented this system, we've learned a few things. We've learned that we probably way underestimated the amount of parking that was being consumed by people not coming to the ski area. We've continued to tweak and adjust and try to find that right balance. And we're probably issuing 150 more permits on peak periods now than we anticipated we would be able to. But stepping back from that, we're now at the point where I see we're at is we've designated the north side parking to be by permit only, managed by the town of Alta and the ski area jointly, really managed by Interstate. We just have put our resources into a pool that they manage. We have this early morning parking on the south side. And then we've worked with all of the businesses and lodges and such, and where initially there was an allocation to the property owners of a certain amount of parking spots. We've stepped in and provided additional parking spots. For example, the lodges were allocated 6 seasonal parking permits for the north side each, and we're issuing upwards of more than 20 to each one in that whole north side pool. And I think it's just a great cooperative effort that we're trying to provide parking how it has been in the past, to some degree, the same places for those entities. There are a few more hoops than that. If you're not parking there all the time, you do have to make a reservation. And the reason we're doing that is our estimate is that there's anywhere from 10 to 100 vehicles that fluctuate based upon who's here on a given day for overnight parking, whether it's lodges, owners, or homeowners. And so being able to know what that number is on a daily basis allows us to adjust the inventory in the rest of the system to accommodate that. So that our goal has been is anyone that has a north side parking permit or either overnight reservation, that we will always have a parking spot for them, and we will adjust the rest of inventory to match that. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, where we're at. We've issued, we have 100, let's see, I don't know what the numbers of permits off the top of my head, but all of the property owners, except for 2 or 3 now, have either selected between a permit for seasonal parking or the flexible permit for making reservations. And all of the businesses have also made selections. They're all in the system, and they're all being scanned and being validated, and seems to be working fairly well at this point in time. I do know there are some homeowners or cabin owners that feel like that they shouldn't have to pay for anything, and others are very grateful for the accommodation that's been made to accommodate their variety of needs. And those are things I think we're going to continue to have to evaluate and adjust as we go forward. Any questions you have on what we're doing, just while we're kind of talking about
Mike,
that?
I have a question, Carolyn here. Do you have any sense of how the number of skier days has been affected by parking? It seems to me that the parking lots have not necessarily on some days been as overwhelmed as I might have expected them to look. And I didn't know if you thought the reservation system decreased your visitor days.
It has, but in a positive way. I mean, we never wanted to disappoint anybody in the past. And so we tried to avoid turning people around. So there were days where we stuffed cars at every possible conceivable place in the town of Alta. And many of those days we had more skiers on the mountain than we wanted to have. And so part of this change is to preserve the quality of the ski experience too.
But it's also funny, sir. I also feel like I've waited in longer lift lines than I have in the past. So I wasn't sure if there was like if the reservation system looks at like, hey, we had, so many thousand different skiers going through the lift line.
Not directly the reservation system. We're continuing to monitor those and do that. We haven't had a day where our busiest day, I think, was 5,400 so far this year. We had some days last year, probably a half a dozen over that number, and 2 or 3 over 6,000. And so those are the days we're trying to avoid. We're trying to match a little bit more of what do we have open terrain wise to the number of skiers that we should put here, and using that parking as a tool a little bit. And we have received overwhelming support and positive comments from the skiers that come. They love it. So that's been positive on that side. There's a little pushback still from those who feel like we're restricting or have taken some things away, but change is always hard. Any questions on mechanics or how it's working, or any concerns you have, things that we should be trying to address?
Well, one question has come up from time to time, Mike, are the rationale for not admitting anybody into the lots before 8 o'clock. In a day like today, when it has snowed several days, and there, as far as I know, there's not much preparation to be made. North side got plowed a couple of nights ago, thankfully. It seems like it's hard to explain why you can't let somebody park there at 7:15 or 7:30.
It goes back a little bit to a consistency issue, is how do you apply something that's variable? We do have, our buildings aren't open till 8 o'clock. Our services aren't available till 8 o'clock. And so, we do have other things. We're grooming around the base of our ski areas up to 8 o'clock. We're still setting up mazes. So we're in the setup mode, and having more and more customers show up began to become a little bit of a safety issue, as well as then they do have the days when you do have snow issues. So we recognize that there's days where, it's not a snow issue, but I would tell you that our operations and our setup operations and our team are ecstatic with the change that's occurred by not having people park in our lots until after 8 o'clock. That was one of the main concerns going into this, is would it back up traffic and cause congestion? We have not seen that significantly materialize. And we have designated the Grizzly lot as a holding queue to put cars into to hold until 8 o'clock if we need to. That number of cars that have been coming at 8 in the morning has continued to diminish as we've gotten into this, before 8, has continued to diminish as we've gotten into the season here. People are learning and catching on, and it's been a very positive for the ski area, its employees, and enabling us to get the work done we need to get done to prepare for the people.
Okay, any other questions of Chris or Mike?
I have a quick question. To Mike Mon, I wonder if you can give us sort of your elevator pitch when you describe to others what the lift company is doing. I'd just like to hear it and maybe emulate it. And also, it seems like the signage that I've seen around town makes it seem like the Alta ski lift parking is town of Alta parking. It doesn't really differentiate. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I think we've tried not to differentiate between those two, because we're treating it as one pool. It's really north side parking is how we're trying to name it, because the town is not issuing specific permits for a specific area. And the ski area is not issuing specific permits for a specific area. We've pooled our resources into one area, and we're issuing permits that allows anyone to park anywhere in that area. And so we try to just say it's north side parking. The signage is consistent with the rest of the parking, so it does look like it's Alta ski area parking because it's all blue with that same text and layout. But it's intended to be north side parking that's a cooperative area by the town and the ski area. And then you have the early morning parking, which is also a cooperative effort. And then we have the rest of the public parking within the ski area that's out there. And when you say an elevator pitch, is an elevator pitch about parking? Is that what you're looking for?
Oh, just like your 30-second or 20-second answer when someone asks you, so what's up with parking in Alta?
Our simple answer is we have more people that want to come to Alta than available parking. And rather than turning people away, hundreds of people away, and that we've had to put us in a position that we have to manage that. And so we've chose just to manage it on peak periods primarily, to manage that demand so that people can come to Alta knowing they have a parking space. And we don't have this early morning frenzy, and people can come and use the product they purchased.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, John or Elise? Okay, well, in the absence of other inputs, I think we have come to the end of our work session on parking. And, my observation is it's been a tremendous sea change since a month ago on this. And I think the sea has calmed significantly. And I think that's where we are. And I appreciate all of the work that has been done by Mike and Chris and others to get it there. So I thereby declare this at the end of the work session and the beginning of the public hearing on ordinance 22-0-1 regarding quasi-public parking. And this allows the marshal to enforce traffic parking laws on public parking areas. You want to expand on that, Mike Morey?
Sure. So as we went back and forth in our dealings with the Alta ski area on how to set up a permitted system, our legal team drilled deep into a long list of legal questions that we had, and one of those had to do with quasi-public parking. What our attorneys found is that the state code that allowed us to go into areas like the Wildcat parking lot and the Albion parking lot and help out with overnight parking violations had changed. And that old state code provided that local municipal ordinances could be extended into quasi public areas if there was an agreement between the parties. About 5 years ago, that was repealed and amended to have three conditions. And Polly, please jump in if I don't get these right. But the first was that the property had to be generally held for public use. In other words, it couldn't just be exclusively, only ski area patrons, for example, could use it. So anybody could come in during the hours of operation and, as a member of the public, and use the space. The second is that there had to be an ordinance allowing the marshal's office or local parking authority to go onto these quasi-public areas and enforce the local code. And third, there had to be an agreement between the parties to allow that activity to occur. So that's really what one of the items that's before you today is whether or not the town should resume our historic practice of doing police enforcement in these areas, which include the South Side Flagstaff, all of Grizzly Gulch, the Wildcat parking lot, and the Albion parking lot. I will tell you that I'm in favor of us doing that. It's a lot of work. It's been a little relaxing not doing it, but there's a need to get vehicles moved at midnight every night so that the snow removal mission can be accomplished. And one of our very important partners has been really affected by that, and that's the State Department of Transportation, who pushes snow off the south side of the highway. So without this legal authority in place for us to remove vehicles, UDOT is impeded in their ability to help the town to provide parking for the upcoming day.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make any statements regarding this ordinance on quasi-public parking?
So Roger, this is, go ahead,
I'm
Mike.
sorry to interrupt, but one other comment that I'd like to add is I do feel like that the marshal's office is the appropriate entity to do this, as opposed to having to resort to private contractors and predatory tow companies coming up and treating these as private property impounds, where their motivation is profit. Our historic practice is see if we can find the owner of the car and get them to move it long before we ever resort to towing cars.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, any comments?
So Mayor, I didn't hear from anybody in advance that they wanted to speak, but I'm just going to check in real quick. Del
Okay.
Draper, did you want to make a comment?
This is specifically on the quasi-public parking ordinance. So
That is
Del?
correct, yes.
Del may be muted.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you, Del. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, anyone else?
And nobody else requested that, and they all know the instructions by now. So I think they're good.
Okay, in that case, I call the public hearing closed and we'll proceed with the regular meeting. And so I am hereby calling to order the January 12th, 2022 Town Council meeting. And I want to start off a little unusually here because, as I think Chris mentioned earlier, we have a 60% new complement on the town council, and I thought it might be worthwhile for the people, the participants who are unfamiliar with us, to get a little more acquainted and make it a more community-like setting. So I've asked each of the members of the town council to just spend a minute and introduce themselves. So why don't we do it alphabetically? Carolyn, you're first in the alphabet. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Roger. So I'm Carolyn Ansel. I have lived in Powder Ridge for the past 17 years. I live here full time. I am married to Ken Libre, who owns and runs the clinic at the base of Alta in the gold miners, the Alta Medical Clinic. We have raised our 2 children in Alta. Our daughter is off to college back east. Our son is a senior in high school. So he'll be graduating this year and also headed to college back east. We love Alta. Obviously, we live here, we work here, or my husband works here. By way of professional background, I am an emergency physician at Utah's busiest hospital, Intermountain Medical Center. I am also was just named as the chief medical officer for a malpractice company. So I have just taken on a lot in the last little bit here. So But I am excited to work with all of you and hope to keep Alta beautiful. So excited to be here. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm excited to work with you too. So, okay, next in the alphabet is Elise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I've lived here for 17 years, maybe 18 years at this point. I came here working at the ski area after I did graduate school. I have a background in environmental science, although I don't do that anymore. I have lived in employee housing ever since I have lived here and worked for the ski area. So I've been through all the different employee housing options. Currently, I live in the cabin below the Wildcat Lift with my husband, and we are expecting a baby here in about 5 weeks. So I'm hoping that I'll still be able to participate in some of the council meetings coming up, but there may be a couple I have to bow out of. Just we'll have to see how it goes. I work at the ski area. I've worked in the ticket office, season pass office, and I currently work in accounting. I live here year round, and my husband works in the avalanche office, and we have an avalanche dog named Banjo. That's about it. Oh, I've been on the council. I think this is my 8th year. I did 2 years on the planning commission, and then I was appointed to the council for 2 years to fulfill a spot that was vacant. And then I did a 4-year term, and I'm in the middle of another 4-year term.
Okay. You know, sometimes these Zoom meetings have in the background dogs barking. I think we might hear a different kind of background. 5 weeks plus. Okay, John.
I'm John Byrne. I moved here in 1998 and first came to Alta when I was went to Dartmouth, studied economics, had my degree in economics. And my first trip to Alta was a sophomore in college. I live over in the Meadows and moved here in 98. I raised both of my daughters. I single parented my 2 daughters here. And the first 6 years of my granddaughter's life, she lived with me as well, which was a joy. And I'm an everyday skier and an everyday hiker. And part of every day has to be outside for me. And looking forward to the opportunity to serve. I'd say I've owned and operated many different businesses, and so I have a lot of operational experience. I've also done quite a bit of planning, base area planning, ski area planning, that sort of thing. And I think I'm pretty good at accounting. And I'm looking forward to participating. This is for me as an opportunity to give back to a place I've lived now nearly half my life. And I welcome that opportunity.
Okay, Roger's next in alphabetical order. I'm an engineer by training, spent a fascinating career exploring the solar system and spacecraft. Moved here, retired, and moved here and lived here. People tell people the whole century, actually the whole millennium. And my kids all learned to ski here. I love it. That's why I'm here. I see this as an opportunity to serve the community with whatever time and energy I have left. And so I'm pleased to be a public servant. And Sheridan is last in the order of alphabet.
Last and least after.
No, I wouldn't call it least.
Not at all.
No.
No, I'll claim that. I'm honored to serve with all of you. I know you all, both professionally and personally, and am in awe of all of you. I see service to our community through public service and serving on the council as one of the calls that I think everyone who's a citizen of Alta should consider. This is my, God bless it, 19th year in Alta, living here year round. I'm very lucky and feel blessed to call you all neighbors and friends. And I think servant leadership in terms of serving the governance of this place and town that we love is one of the highest callings we can try and meet. So I look forward to a fruitful and constructive relationship with all of you. Because it's my want, I can't go out without a quote that I think of all the time, which is from Cornel West, which is never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. And may we be just in the way that we choose to serve our town and govern our town. I'm honored to serve with all of you.
Great. Wonderful quote. You literary people are good at that. We engineers are not. So I've also asked the staff to introduce themselves so we can get acquainted with them. So we'll go through that alphabetically. So we'll start with Chris.
Alphabetical by first name kind of tripped me up a little bit, but I am more or less prepared. So I know Carolyn.
You messed up either way.
Yeah, Carolyn wins on both fronts.
Right. Well, I might win on both fronts myself. So, yeah. So I grew up in New Hampshire. I went to college in Colorado Springs. I had a close friend in college who had grown up in Alta, and she invited some of us ragamuffin future ski bums out to Alta on breaks from college a few times, and my fate was utterly sealed. I had no choice but to come to Alta in 2005 to spend my first ski season out of college at the Rustler Lodge. I worked at the Rustler in the Alta Lodge for 3 winters and lived in the canyon those 3 winters before I got a job in the ski patrol. I was a ski patroller until 2014 was when I kind of stopped, working primarily as a ski patroller. The season before that, or I guess in 2013, I served as the Bill Levitt Fellow at Friends of Alta, working for Jen Clancy, and that led to me getting this job with the town in May of 2014, and I have been the assistant town administrator for the town for almost 8 years, which pales in comparison to some commitments to the town of Alta. It is starting to feel like a fairly long time to me, but my job at the town is really varied. I do a lot of special kind of one-off projects, and my predecessors in the role did the same. I've worked a lot on kind of regional planning projects like Mountain Accord and stuff that the Central Wasatch Commission's up to. I work on transportation planning issues, emergency management. I apply for grants to do one-time projects. I help John run the Planning Commission and work on Planning Commission efforts. And when Kate Black left, I stepped into a couple roles that she managed, like kind of working with our part-time building maintenance staff to take care of facilities. And I have tried to some extent to present kind of a capital projects planning approach that is a work in progress. But those are some of the things I do, and that's me.
Great. Okay, let's see. J.E. comes before J.O. So Jen.
Hi, Jen Clancy. Let's see, I'm the newest member of the Town of Alta team here in the admin office. I started in the fall of 2018. Prior to that, I was lucky enough to work for Friends of Alta for almost 14 years in the basement of the town office. So it was a nice transition moving from the first floor to the second floor.
Step up.
When
Step
Kate
up,
retired. My roles with the town of Alta include being the administrator of the Alta Justice Court, which is a role that I have an environmental science background and never thought I would be managing a court system as an administrator, but it's one of the duties I actually do enjoy the most, working with defendants and stuff like that. I do accounts payable, receivable. I do cash receipting for the town. I manage our business and dog licenses, manage payroll and HR stuff, manage the website, and occasionally I get special projects handed my way, which I really enjoy because they kind of shake things up a little bit from my normal daily activities.
Okay, John.
Very good. Well, exactly on the other end of the scale from Jen, I was going to say, I'm sorry it took 39 years for me to finally introduce myself to you, but I'm kind of the longest standing member of this esteemed body. And I gotta say, I loved every minute of it. A little bit of background, I'm an Iowa boy. I went going to the University of Iowa. After graduating, I got a job at a regional planning agency, and I got the first regional transit grant for a rural area. We couldn't spend the money though for months because it was winter. So I asked my boss if I could go skiing, and he said, "For how long?" I said, "A month." And he said, "Huh, only if you go to Alta." And I'd been to Alta before with the University of Iowa Ski Club. So I said, sure. So I moved into G19 of the gold miner's daughter and never felt so much at home since then in my life. I loved it. I went back to Iowa, went back to work, always longing to get back to Alta specifically, Utah in general. And then I heard that Bill Levitt was looking for an associate, an assistant. So I called him up. He interviewed me on the phone. I found myself flying out and staying at the Alta Lodge for a week in the summer, going to meetings with Bill. He was interviewing me basically from morning, noon, and night. And at one point he said, "Well, I think you'll fit in here. I'm going to offer you the job." I said, "Well, I'll take the job. I love it. And I'll stay here as long as you're the mayor." Figuring it would be 2 or 3 years because, you know, politics, things change. He's the longest standing elected official in the history of the state of Utah. So there might be somebody new by now, but I don't think so. Anyway, 2 to 3 years, here I am still happily, and Alta is home. First off, I'm a public servant, so I work for you all. So any questions, comments, complaints, that's what I do. For you, citizens, mayor, council, anybody. And I think that's the most important job, the interface of the town with anybody that has any municipal business. The other things that I do are land use. I mean, we have some really complex land use issues, as Elise would remember, maybe you hopefully have forgotten from being on the planning commission for 2 years. I mean, everything here is complex. I mean, I don't know another municipality. I've been to the Supreme Court with lawyers as support, Supreme Court of Utah 3 times for single family houses. The 3rd District Court of the United States and the United States Supreme Court for a land use issue in the Albion Basin. I mean, that doesn't happen in tiny municipalities anywhere else. Through the Planning Commission conditional use permit approval and review process and our building department review and approval process, in my tenure, we've permitted every single building in Sugar Plum Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of Powder Ridge, a couple of subdivisions, a number of houses, and some remods and rebuilds of the lodges. But it's like Chris and Jen both said, it's all about the special projects. I mean, there's no way, this is not a cookie cutter place. You don't come in every day and do the same thing like you would at so many other places, even municipalities downtown. Every day is something different. And it just depends on what is on fire the most on that certain day, a lot of times, which makes it tough to plan. But as Jen said, it makes it kind of fun. Some of the things I'd like to highlight, one of the special projects that I was handed by Bill was to Bill saw an old plat that said town site on it from the Library of Congress. And he said, well, this means that we have our own town. So after a measly 20 years dealing with our local representatives and people in Washington, D.C., we finally got a congressional act granting the town 2 acres of land from the Forest Service at no fee. Part of that land is underneath existing buildings that we had never had before. And the other part is the 1.14 acres that we've been talking about with the community center, of which the jury is still out on that project. But we never had any land before. And that was kind of an interesting and fun project. Little Cottonwood Canyon Road Committee. It met yesterday. And anybody in Alta is in Alta now, safer with less hassle than they would have been 15 years ago. Before the Little Cottonwood Canyon Road Committee, it was kind of a free-for-all, and everybody was beaten up on the DOT, the Forest Service, our marshals, to get up the canyon earlier, to get business open. It just didn't work. So Bill thought we would put together this weird private-public partnership of disparate entities like Snowbird, Alta, DOT, UTA, county sheriffs, our sheriffs, and meet regularly. So it has no budget, it has no boss, although it's run by the mayor, who has run his first meeting yesterday. And because of that, there's not that many fisticuffs anymore, and getting up the canyon safely and getting to the resorts to ski is a lot better than it was 20 years ago. And further, I mean, we submitted that Little Cottonwood Canyon Road Committee to the Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and we didn't win, but there were 1,300 applications that year. We got special notice and made the finalist out of all of those things. So
Great.
it's a pretty cool program, and it's very unique, and it works. Now,
Great.
Mike might be shaking his head because I know there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background, but it's way better than it used to be.
And I attended the first for me of those meetings yesterday. It was as smooth as silk.
Didn't used to be like that.
impressed.
It used to be like
Okay.
the rules were Queen's. Anyway, that's it. So special projects, public servant, call me if you need anything. More than enough time. Thank you.
Got it. Mike Morey.
Hi, everybody. I'm pretty sure I know everybody in the room and have probably been in everyone's house at least once. So, born and raised Utah. My history in Alta has more to do with summer recreation. Back when I was a little kid, back before the town incorporated, that's where my family spent a lot of our summertime, getting to know every trail and what was behind every rock. So I've been with the town full-time for 31 years now, 2 years part-time prior to that. I've got a background in the military. I've held 4 positions with the town, none of which I applied for or necessarily wanted, but yet I'm still here. So there you have it. We are really proud to be the public's first touch with the town of Alta. We're the only 24/7, 365 operation that the town offers, and we find ourselves in a lot of non-traditional roles for a police department, and we try and be adaptable and available to that. So people call us for a variety of reasons. We do our best to be credible, and if it's not a service that we can do ourselves, we try and get the appropriate service to them. We do a lot with a little. We've leaned heavily on this council in the past, and we're sure counting on your continued support. Thank you.
Great. Molly.
So I thought Piper.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. PI before PL. Piper. I don't see her on the screen.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I came to Alta in 1987 from Connecticut and New York. Came for one ski season. Ended up working in the Alta Lodge, housekeeping, front desk, volunteer firefighter before UFA. Part-time ski patrol, short stint season, and dispatch, assistant town clerk, and town clerk. Most of the time I am sitting in front of my computer doing accounting. Some of my other duties, administrating the town council, so keeping track of attending and keeping track of proceedings, recording them, countersigning agreements and contracts, accounting, budget reporting at the direction of the mayor, elections, record keeping, respond to grandma requests, and issue oaths oaths to officers and appointed officials and elected officials. So public servant, call me anytime. It's better to call us first before you have to call maybe Mike or the mayor.
Yeah. Right.
And the first line of defense for the council too, and for the public, so. That's about it, thanks.
Okay, now Polly.
All right, so I have been working with the town since early 2019 and took over as the town attorney later that year. I've been doing municipal law since 2005. And like everyone, I have an immense fondness for the town of Alta. I was actually married up there, and the marriage is still going, so happy about that. And I specialize in municipal law. I also work with Cameron Platt, who unfortunately, he normally will attend council meetings, but he unfortunately he had a death in his family, so he was unable to attend. But I am here to assist you. My specialty in municipal law started off with planning issues, which, as John pointed out, are quite sophisticated in the town of Alta. And I'm here to provide whatever help I can to you all. Thanks.
Great. I'm delighted that everybody's gotten to know each other a little bit. I mean, I've learned something that I didn't know about each of you, and I hope the rest of you felt the same way. Good deal. Next, any follow-up remarks, or you all cool with that? All right. Next thing has to do with when we're going to meet in the future. For a number of years, this body met at 10 in the morning, got over around noon, spilled into the afternoon a bit some. The last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, it moved to the afternoon with a 4 o'clock start, with usually preceded by some sort of work session, frequently preceded by some sort of work session. And I'd like to see if we want to change that, move back to a morning session or an afternoon session or some other arrangement. And so let's see. I'd like to get each of the town councilors to give us their thoughts on that, and we'll go opposite direction alphabet this time. So Sheridan gets to start.
Thanks for looking at this, Mayor. It would help me with my winter schedule, council-wise. Colleagues, if we could do any time that would wrap before 3 o'clock, if that's possible. And if I were to vote for my favorite time, probably noon. Then we could ski in the morning, Mayor.
Yeah, that is important. I only got 10 runs in today. So you'd like to quit by noon, okay?
No, I'd like to start by noon. And
start at noon.
If we could, I mean, if I were to choose a perfect time, but anytime, if we could wrap this all, have our meetings sometime and be done by 3 o'clock, that would be very helpful.
Okay, gotcha. You want to be.
That's just speaking for myself. And again,
yeah,
we're a collective democratic body. Right.
Okay, let's see. Backwards in the alphabet would be John.
I'm pretty flexible about this. I think if we're gonna go to a morning time, as long as we're staying on Zoom, which most of us are, as I look at the screen, everybody's doing it from their home. I don't know why we wouldn't start at 9, just so that there'd be more of the day left when we were done. But I'm also pretty flexible about it, and starting at 4 works for me as well.
Okay. Let's see, who's next going in this direction? Elise.
I mean, I'm flexible. I do think that if, as long as we stay on Zoom, I think I'm flexible. If we were to start going to in-person meetings during the day is a little tough. I can make it work. I think the other issue with having it in the morning, if we were to go to in-person meetings again, is the road is always a big issue. If I remember correctly, some of our council meetings had to get canceled for road closures.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one reason to have it in the afternoon. My only other thoughts is that it seems like I've noticed as my time on the town council, we have had a lot more participation with our residents by having it later in the afternoon and the evenings. There's a lot more people that have been able to comment that I've never seen comment before. When we used to have it at 10 o'clock, it was always the same kind of handful of people that were always at every town council meeting. And I know a lot of people, at least maybe in the younger group that I've talked to, that have been watching these YouTube lives that are probably watching right now. So that would be my only other thing to consider, is that I think later in the day and the evening is a little bit better for participation in our community. I know these are recorded, but at the same time, if someone wants to make a live comment, it's a little easier for them to do it when they're not at work. So that's my only 2 cents on that.
Okay. Carolyn?
Respectfully, Mayor, it would wreak havoc on my life to meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. Wednesdays is one of my full days as the chief medical officer. So it would pose some complications for me. When I considered, running, and the meetings were already scheduled for the year, and they were all scheduled to start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so, if it mattered a lot to others and we went, every other month in the morning, I guess that would work okay. I could support Sheridan start at noon. That would be easier for me. I truly appreciate Elise's comments with getting other people to participate. And I think that probably everybody on this call exercises before work, or finds that that's sometimes much easier to do than to work and then go exercise. So I recognize, as does Sheridan, that I am one person of the 5 of us voting.
Okay. So we've gone through this. I'm flexible too. I don't have another job, fortunately. In fact, I haven't had a job for 20 years until I had this one, so I'm a little out of practice on having jobs. But I'd kind of like to try something a little bit different and see how it works out. If we could maybe do the noon start and do that for 2 or 3 months and see how that would work. Any thoughts on that? Carolyn? I think you're muted, Carolyn.
Yeah, I tried to unmute myself.
Oh.
Could I hear from the town staff what works for them, and from our attorney what works for them? And
good idea.
For Mike, please. Could you guys all comment?
We serve at the pleasure of the council.
That's very diplomatic.
That answer doesn't work for me,
political.
Piper. I want a real answer.
All right, you guys pick, we'll follow. No, but I mean, if people had said with Zoom, it doesn't really make that much difference. If we go to in person, it does have more of an impact. And it's a little bit more difficult doing it in 4 or 5 in person. I know a lot of other municipalities do that, but I think we're going to be Zooming for a while.
Should we talk about that for a second? To me, I think we could go ahead and make a plan that even if we go back to in person, that it would be optional in person and that people would continue to have the option to attend via Zoom, even if some people were gathering at the community center. I think that would be the right sort of, just looking out for the rest of the year. I mean, the virus isn't going to go away between now and the end of the year. And being up in the library, the existing community center, that seems like a pretty dangerous place for us to be all gathered. So, if it ends up going back to Zoom, great, or back to in person, great. But I think Zoom should still be offered. And then I guess just commenting on the sort of overall dialogue, it seems to matter more to Carolyn and Elise to do it in the afternoon. The middle of the day seems like an odd choice to me. So I would rather do it at either end of the day, but I'm flexible as to whether that's morning or afternoon.
Okay.
Could we maybe do a Google Doodle that would, I get the feeling that this is kind of like that analogy of some people want the orange peel and some people want the orange slices, and we could get to a yes if we could have more information, even potentially about choosing a different day that would work for people. Just a thought, not trying to complicate.
That's a good
nice
thought too. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Can somebody set that up for us for between now for the next couple of weeks? Who? Let's see. All three of you said you took on, or four of you said you just took on special projects.
Yeah, but only two of those people can work with computer stuff in the most efficient way.
I apologize. I don't really function very well unless I understand what the members of the team desire, and I need to hear from Chris and Mike Morey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
Right.
forewarn you that I'm a complete jerk until I've had 3 of these, so I caution against going too early. And at least during the winter months, road opening during avalanche control, I would certainly advise give yourselves a little window, 9 o'clock or later for a start in case we have control work activities.
Maybe during the winter, we should just stick with the later afternoon thing and then revisit this when ski season ends.
Okay, let's see. Chris hasn't weighed in, I don't think.
I've found 4 to 6 to be a great time. Honestly, it 6 o'clock is not super late. It gives you time during the day to prepare for a meeting. I think it's easier for guests to attend at the end of a day than it is in the morning. And I can recall a few occasions where it was impossible for guests to get up the canyon for in-person meetings due to what Mike Morey just mentioned. Midday is obviously nice because then it's just a part of your regular workday as a staff person. I do think participation is better after hours. That's me, and I don't mean to discount whatsoever the difficulties that individuals have with afternoon or evening meetings.
Any other staff?
And I'll just jump in. For me, it's at your pleasure. I want to comment that, and I meant to say this earlier, that the staff in Alta is very impressive and incredibly hardworking. So you are all really lucky to have such wonderful staff members and such dedicated staff members. I also just wanted to comment about in-person versus Zoom. Just be aware that even if the state changes its policies, which it could, right now we are allowed to have this electronic meeting without an anchor location, but we are children of the state of Utah. So who knows what the state government will dictate in the future. Currently, if you do have to have an anchor location, someone has to set it up. I do think that we have talked as a staff about expending some resources in order to get better video and other communications so that we can have a hybrid. I think particularly in a town like Alta where it can be difficult to get up there. That makes life a lot easier for guests and also people attending who are interested. But just be aware that if it does go that route, at least a staff person will have to be establishing that anchor location.
A staff person, or do they also require a member of the board?
It's up currently the way the rule is, if you are to have an anchor location, you just need to have a location. It doesn't you
Okay.
set your requirements however you want, but you do need someone to have a place for the public to watch it.
Yeah, John?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but we're not really ready to go hybrid in terms of the equipment. And I know you had a proposal. My understanding is we haven't really pulled that trigger yet. So I think at this point, there is no really going to a in-person hybrid Zoom meeting. And is that something that should be on this year's CapEx list, Chris, or should that fall into, after June 30th? What's the timing of the AV proposal?
Well, off the top of my head, I think we could spend $5,000 on AV equipment for the community center during the current fiscal year. And we did get a proposal that was substantially more than that. And given that the proposal was for over $5,000, we'd have to go out to bid and consider some other options to do a project. That's our bid threshold. So
that would take some time. And then also, isn't there an internet issue that would need to be solved at the community center as well, like better service?
I'm not certain of that. We have we'd probably need to get permission to use the Salt Lake County fiber optic internet connection up there. The current DSL connection is probably not sufficient to run as a big Zoom call, but we could look into that some more. And then there could be some other options for improving service. So
my point would be that's going to take some time to figure out. I mean, if there's an emergency, I'm sure Chris could figure it out in a month. But if we were in a position to actually do a hybrid meeting by the summer or by the time ski season ends, that'd probably be a success.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to suspend this discussion and take offline some the thoughts that have been expressed here and see if we can come up with something that is pretty much kind of accommodate everyone. I think that the biggest constraint I heard was actually Sheridan wanted to quit by 3, which is incompatible with starting with 4 for sure. But I think that
If we can't do it, we can't do it.
Carolyn wanted to say something. Carolyn, you're mute.
Sorry, only that I truly, sir, cannot attend every Wednesday morning meeting.
Gotcha.
That is not
Yeah,
feasible
that's
for
out.
me, sir.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and that was something I think that Sheridan brought up. I mean, for the last 100 years, we met on Thursdays at 10 a.m. For a while, the council tried meeting at, I think it was 6, and there was no increase in attendance. It was pretty weird. But so I don't want to make it more complicated, but we switched from Thursday at 10 to Wednesday at 4. So day and time.
Right. And I am one person, and Wednesdays work great for me, just not at 10 o'clock in the morning. I could compromise on the noon time, but that would be the time that I could compromise.
Okay.
I apologize.
Tell you what, let's keep it for the next meeting at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And in the meantime, we'll try to stir this around some more offline.
So the schedule will stand for the rest of the year, and we will take it up at another meeting.
Can't we do it 1 month at a time?
We have a set schedule. You have to set it for the whole year, and we've done that. And so it's next month will be the 4 p.m. as it is scheduled. And we can address, I'll send out a doodle poll, but as of now, the rest of the meetings begin at 4 p.m.
Okay, as of now. Got it. All right, next item on the agenda is Mike Mon, if he's still around, to give us an update on ASL.
He is. I've been having some issues moving him today. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. Well, as I had said earlier, we have been pleasantly surprised with the results of the parking changes we've made for this year. It's really improved operations and improved the ski experience. So that's going well. Our visitation levels, we're up about 7% right now compared to last year. We've seen season pass visitations about flat, maybe a little bit down. We've seen increase of the destination visitor through our lodging properties, and a lot of them are coming on either an Icon or a Mountain Collective Pass. We're just finalizing an agreement with Altera, the Icon product, that will take effect starting next year, which will reduce the number of Icon pass holders that can come to Alta. We'll be moving to the premier level of Icon, joining Jackson Hole, Aspen, and I believe Deer Valley as to be able to visit those resorts with an Icon pass. You have to have that premier pass. So that we think that will help take some of the pressure off. There's just too many people with Icon base passes, and we'd like to reduce that pool that can come here a little bit. We are also, in regards to COVID, like the many in the town, we had a little outbreak in our employee housing prior to the Christmas holidays. We had at one point in time 40 employees out. We had one day we couldn't run the Wildcat lift because we were short employees. 2 days we couldn't provide any food from Watson's shelter, and several days where the offerings at Watson's shelter were very limited. Just in staffing in general, we're short, continue to be short in our food and beverage operations, and some of the normal offerings that we would have in those establishments we have not been able to offer because of that. Currently, our practice was if we had an employee test positive in employee housing, we immediately removed them from the canyon. We rented hotel rooms and isolated them downtown, took care of them down there until they were cleared to come back to work. Our protocol is still a little more stringent than is out there in the CDC and state guidelines that allows employees to come back to work after 5 days if they haven't had any symptoms for 24 hours. We are still testing to allow employees back into work. We start testing after 5 days with those symptoms, and they have to have a negative test to come back to work. And if we get to the 10-day mark and they're asymptomatic, we will evaluate. But so far, we've only had one employee that's made it that far. Most of the rest of them around the 6 to 7 day mark, they're starting to test negative and bringing them back when we're bringing them back into the workforce. We currently have, we had gotten down to about 10 employees out of the workforce, which is a pretty low number when you consider we have over 500 employees. But that number has increased a little bit in the last week. We're up to about 15 at this point in time, and continuing to monitor and adjust going forward. That's probably what I have for today. We're starting to plan and prepare now for our next summer's operations and projects and such. We're starting to move into that mode, but looking forward to this upcoming weekend, and hopefully we'll see the parking system be able to keep it very manageable for us too. Any questions you have for the ski area?
Well, I have one.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
With all this demand on parking, I noticed that there's a construction trailer out in the Grizzly lot that's been there for a while.
That's that was used as for our snowmakers. When we had snowmaking going, that was their office. It was behind the cat shop. We had moved it for the owner to come pick it up. They were supposed to pick it up 2 days ago and they still haven't got it. So we're working with them to try to get it out of here.
Okay, got it.
That's kind of that deal.
Illegal parker.
I should also mention in regards to COVID, and the county's mandate, there was some question if the queuing requirement applied to ski lifts.
Yeah.
And we worked directly with Angela Dunn and posed that question. And they have indicated, no, it does not. It's intended for people that queue up that are going inside of buildings primarily. And she is comfortable with what we are doing, as well as, and all of the ski areas are following that suit. And it's similar in Summit County. The Summit County order was also clarified to indicate it doesn't apply to people in ski lift mazes. So that's kind of where that issue is.
Great.
I'm very glad you addressed that question, Mike. From my perspective and background, I definitely support that as well. I find it interesting that the wording was such lines, and I think all of us think ski lift lines because that's the line we all wait in, Right. So I see where a lot of the angst came from, and I wish there was some way for us to market that or settle that more as like a ski Utah thing. But of course, no one really wants to say, hey, we've got a lot of cases here. And guess what? You don't have to wear a mask in line. There's no real way to do that. But I thank you very much for spending the time clarifying that, sir.
Angela Dunn indicated that they would probably clarify that in their FAQs at some point in time. But I have not. I just checked a few minutes ago and it hasn't been clarified yet.
Yeah, and just reading her announcement of January 8th, it says, wear well-fitting masks when indoors, quote, or friends, or queuing outdoors, and friends in public. So that made me think it was ski lines too, lift lines too, but you're saying that's not what you've gotten in way of clarification from her.
No, I could forward you the email if you'd like that she sent. That is not the intent.
Okay.
If that help.
Okay, John.
I just wanted to thank Mike for the efforts they're making to protect the skier experience. I think that I've been over there, 35 days or something so far. And honestly, there haven't been any days that were really crazy this year. And I buy into the idea that the parking system has actually been a positive from the user experience point of view. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Mike?
Thank you for telling us about the icon. Do you have a sense of how long you're signing your contract for? Is it another 3 years?
I can't disclose that. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Mike? All right, well, let's move on to public citizen input, rather. Did you want to say something, Piper?
Yes, we got an email from Dan Kentner after the deadline. I did send it out to the council, but I thought I'd read it to the council into the record. Dan would like to address the council and those listening to this meeting about our Alta night shuttle. The shuttle has been in operation for almost a month now. Prior to its starting, we tried to reach out to everyone we could to let them know about this service. The shuttle is free. It runs from 6 to 10 p.m., 7 nights a week. It's provided by Alta Shuttle. They also provide the daily resort shuttle. The phone number is the same. It's listed on every shuttle stop sign by the bypass road and at Wildcat drop-off area. Just call for a ride and you will be picked up. Now the ridership is less than what we had hoped for. I think it is because we need to do a better job getting the word out. I suggest we use the Interlodge email list and let everyone know about this service. I will be happy to put an email together for this purpose. Sarah Gibbs has made a very nice poster for the shuttle. I have placed those in our rental units and will print more if I get some help with circulation. Please contact me at 801-718-7330 if you would like to help spread the word. This is our chance to show Visit Salt Lake that we have need for this service and to give them a reason to keep funding it in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, good point.
I think a suggestion also might to post that at the post office might be a good place, but go ahead, Carolyn.
I'm wondering if we could suggest that the drivers consider reading our please be idle free in Alta and turn off your lights and go park someplace besides in Powder Ridge. I also feel very sorely for the driver. I wish that they had a warm place to stay. I don't know if a lodge would be willing to volunteer their lobby for someone to sit, or one of the rental units would volunteer a place for somebody to sit. But it must be a very long, cold shift. But I wish they parked someplace else.
Well, that's a good point. And, you know, as I saw this night shuttle come into being, I thought it would be for people coming from West Alta to have a meal at one of the lodges, but I don't know to what extent the lodges are allowing outside guests. And Sheridan, you're connected to one of those. What's the story there?
We're evaluating it almost day by day. If the guests that are outside guests are guests of our current guests and can document their vaccination status, and we have the capacity, and those are all three moving targets at any given moment. So I think that probably more than anything has hurt the night shuttle business. There's not a lot of open access to other lodges in town, although I did hear Gold Miners is also doing their trivia night. So I think, and they're serving pizza. So some places are more open than others.
And open mic night starts again in the Peruvian bar tonight, or live bands or something.
Okay, well, I think that this night shuttle is a great service. It just may have come at the wrong moment. And I would hate to have it judged to be a failure because of these unusual circumstances. But I mean, if they want to, let's see, with these two openings, was Gold Miners and Peruvian, if that picks up their ridership some.
Yes, I also noticed Snow Pine is back open to the public again.
Oh, it
But
is.
it seems like they've all kind of opened and closed at least once through the season. And it has to be affecting this when combined with the fact that there's no shallow shaft
Yeah.
this year, which is, something I think we all miss. It seems like there'd be more momentum to taking Alta guests down to Snowbird on this shuttle, but then Snowbird's also been running kind of a funky schedule.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other public comments?
So Roger, or Mayor, excuse me, I didn't hear from anybody that they wanted to make a public comment. I guess what I would just like to do is give people, the attendees, a moment. The raise your hand option is on the bottom of your screen. There's your menu bar there. If you'd like to speak, have 2 minutes with the council, I guess just raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone do that though.
Okay, well then let's move on to approval of the consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion to approve that consent agenda, and we can have some discussions thereafter.
So moved.
So moved. I'll second it.
All right. So Any discussions concerning the consent agenda that anyone would like to make? Well, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, done. Are there any questions regarding the departmental reports that any of the council wants to ask? Anything in there or brought up anything? I thought they were pretty good myself. All right, in the absence of those, let's go on to item 9, which is discussion and possible action on resolution 2022-R1 or -R-1, a resolution certifying the authorization of individuals to make and transact the town's PTIF accounts. And so Piper, would you explain that to us?
Yes, PTIF is a public treasury investment funds. We have 8 accounts with the state of Utah. And when you have a new council or a new mayor, the new mayor has to authorize people to access those accounts. And that's and I have a generic ordinance there or a resolution that they have provided. And I need to get signatures from those 4 people, and pretty basic.
Okay.
All we need is a roll call vote on that, unless there are any questions.
Don't we have to have a motion to adopt it?
Oh, I'm sorry, resolution, yep.
All right.
Sorry.
So moved.
All
So
right.
moved.
Third and
Sure.
move. And I think we had a second from somebody.
I'll second it.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Elise, thank you. Any further discussion of it? Seems fairly routine to me. Okay, in the absence of that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 10, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2022-01 regarding quasi-public parking, which Mike discussed earlier. And let's see. We need a motion to.
I'll move that we approve the.
Okay, John moves.
I'll second.
And I second.
Okay, well, and any discussion on that?
I think we've heard a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of discussion, exactly. Any further discussion?
I just have like a couple of short comments. One, congratulations to Chris and Mike for getting this to the finish line, and Mike Mom as well. And I think we need to approve this and execute it and move on, get back to our lives.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I've noticed that it's really, it's great to see the ski area use its ability to problem solve to make this program work. And I think the ski area has done a good job and is trying hard to make it work for everyone. And that it's ending up about right with the cabin owners, most of them getting their permits from the ski area. The ski area has the ability to manage that with their excess parking resources that we simply don't have. And seems like the town and the ski area are working well together.
Yeah, what you're actually addressing, John, is item 11, the discussion of possible action on the MOU between the ski area and us. But
yes, it was. Sorry, was I a step out there? That was
as opposed to the in contrast with this regarding quasi-public parking. So tell you what, let's have a vote on the action on the ordinance regarding quasi-public parking, and then we'll go on to the MOU. So any further discussion on the quasi-public parking ordinance? Okay. All in favor of that ordinance 2022-0-1? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted. All right, so now to the MOU, which John was just appealing to and saying, you know, you guys did a great job, which I certainly endorsed totally. This has been a long, arduous process and with lots and lots of labor and consternation. And I admire you for sticking it out, getting to the finish line. So I would like to have a motion to approve or to endorse the MOU between the ski area and the town.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Let's
Boy,
do.
say it again.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it with voting. All in favor of adopting this MOU, and I will sign it immediately after this.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed. Now let's see, item 12, a discussion possible MOU with the Alta Lodge regarding parking. Who can speak to that? Maybe Mike?
Yep. The Alta Lodge has a certain amount of private property on the south side of Flagstaff. They're, as I understand it, have had discussions with the ski area on whether or not to make that land available into the day use parking situation. If they were to do that, we would think that they would qualify for our services as well, you know, assisting with the overnight parking enforcement needs.
Let me just jump in, and maybe Chris can give us more of an update, but we have a license agreement between us and UDOT for that parking. And so the question was kind of next steps. The ordinance that you just passed regarding the quasi-public requires there to be an agreement to allow for that to happen. I don't think, and maybe Chris can give us an update on the status of that.
No, we don't have an agreement for the council to approve as part of this agenda item, but we wanted to leave it on the agenda in case that such an agreement were to take shape. And I guess I think we're expecting to hear from the Alta Lodge kind of you know, any day now that they're ready to move forward. But we just need to understand the status of that parking, whether it's going to be included as quasi-public parking or not, and then we'll be ready to go. So
Okay, so the situation right now is that we do not have a draft MOU with the Alta Lodge regarding parking. Is that correct?
correct.
Right. Okay, so let's table this issue, this item, until next time when we potentially will have it.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
interrupt you for a moment?
Yes.
I don't think you intended to, but we missed agenda item number 8, the mayor's report, but maybe you did it on purpose.
Oh. So we did. Why don't I do it?
Whenever you want to get to it, I just wanted to point
Okay,
that out because I knew you
let's
had
get a
something to
couple
say.
of these procedural items out of the way. I will get back to that. Thank you. I left myself out. Oh, well. The
Do we
Item
want to
number 13.
express, do we want to encourage this or express support for the Alta Lodge entering into such an agreement, or say something positive to encourage them to go ahead and draft the MOU?
Like Sheridan said, I would just say, let's do this. Let's get this moving. Alta Lodge.
Seems like we've sussed out that we want to see this happen, that we want to see those spaces, and Mike thinks it's critical in terms of snow removal and snow removal for the south side of the road there.
I mean, it's kind of nuts to have a little bit of the town parking under some rule and the rest of it is under other rules. I mean, that who could figure that out? So
you
it's,
see
Well,
that this would be putting it into the same pool as everything else, is how I understand it.
We want to see what the agreement is with the ski lifts and ensure how that parking is going to be addressed so that we know, because right now the license agreement requires it to be public parking. So we need to see what the deal is before we can stamp it, you know.
So we're not close enough for the council supporting the mayor to sign it when it passes the legalized.
hold it. I think we've gotten two things mixed up here. One is the MOU with the Alta Lodge, which is what this topic is about. And the other is the MOU with the ski lifts. Polly, I think you said the ski lifts, but I doubt that that's what you meant. I think you meant the Alta Lodge. No?
I meant the Alta, right. Well, the Alta Lodge has a separate MOU with the ski lifts.
Okay.
And how they intend to utilize the Alta Lodge's parking in conjunction with the ski lifts is going to affect the town's position. If, for example, the Alta Lodge just said, we're only going to allow this parking to be for ski lifts use, or I don't know, we just want to see what the deal is between how the parking is going to be used before we can approve it.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd like to speak from Mike Mom, but he wanted to address us on this issue if you would like to hear from him.
Sure.
Mayor, so we've been working with the Alta Lodge on trying to get their private property into the kind of the reservation system for the public. So I have an MOU that I just signed today with the Alta Lodge that basically acknowledges that they have 22 parking spots on the south side of Flagstaff. They're going to retain 4 for the use for the lodge. And then they're going to put 18 under the ski area's parking management system, which will become part of the early morning parking pool and the regular pool for parking. And in exchange for that, we are giving them 18 parking spaces out of the north side allocation or flexible reservation permits. It's a combination of permits. So it's kind of an exchange of parking on the north side for parking on the south side that goes into the public pool.
Okay. So this contemplated MOU between the town and the Alta Lodge. Talk about that a little bit from, I don't know, it's either Chris or Mike Morey.
Well, I guess I would say that it's essentially that parking is going to become, if what Mike Mon just described is the case, then what that parking will become the same kind of parking that we just executed an agreement with Alta Ski Area to consider quasi-public parking. So, I mean, I guess I would leave it to Mike Morey to testify to the desirability of providing Marshall's Department services in quasi-public parking that is distinct only on property ownership maps. I mean, parking on Alta Lodge private property along the highway is indistinct from parking on Alta Ski Area special use permit ground that's also along the highway and directly adjacent to it. So, I mean, it's always seemed to me that there's no reason to treat the west side of that parking area differently from the east side. That's what I would say about it.
From my point of view, we'd want to have a quick walkthrough and have the area described to us, particularly, how those 4 spots are going to be used. But really what I'm hearing is that there's a substantial amount of space being dedicated to a public use, which is a compelling reason to, extend our services.
And I do believe the other party to that Alta Ski Area, Alta Lodge agreement has his hand raised in the attendees column here in the Zoom meeting, like Mike Mon just did. So.
Is that right? Jen, somebody else would like to?
That is correct. If you would like me to enable Cliff to speak, I can
Sure.
do that as well. Okay. Cliff is joining us. And I've left Mike Mon is still in this conversation as well.
Yeah, good. So Cliff, welcome back to the town council. You thought you'd gotten out? You haven't?
Hi, I'm glad to be here as a visitor. Yeah, so for decades now, Alta Lodge has contributed its private property on South Flagstaff to the public parking program, and that was formalized in a 2003 license agreement among Alta Lodge, the town of Alta, and UDOT. And it's, first of all, the main thing that 2003 agreement accomplished was to formalize and recognize the Alta Lodge private property rights in its South Flagstaff property, and also to confirm that Alta Lodge invites the town of Alta to manage public parking on that property, and also appreciates, invites, and is really grateful for the work that UDOT does in that area of clearing and storing snow and maintaining the snow berm that is partly for the purpose of protecting Alta Lodge property from potential avalanches. So all of those are important aspects of the ongoing relationship, and it's our intention that those good, mutually helpful relationships will continue. As Mike Mon mentioned, we're intending to enter into that MOU with Alta Ski Area, and then what we will be both announcing and also asking confirmation of is that the Alta Lodge, Alta Ski Area MOU will be in effect, will be respected, but also is intended to be consistent with the relationships as they were laid out in the 2003 license agreement. And I know that UDOT intends to keep plowing that area, which is great for everybody, and intends to keep storing snow there, which is good for UDOT, and maintaining the berm, which is good for Alta Lodge. So that's our intention.
Okay. So, but the last thing to do to close this triangle is to have a MOU between the Alta Lodge and the town, as I see it right now, and
yeah,
that's consistent with the other things you've described. So
that's right. We'd be willing to enter into that. I think that'd be great for everybody, and as part of that, we'd like confirmation that the 2003 license agreement remains in effect.
So until we have such an MOU to vote on, we're not going to vote on it. So we'll wait until we get such a thing. Okay, so I think that takes care of item 12, which is the MOU between the Alta Lodge, it's the putative MOU between the Alta Lodge and the town. Item 13 is it's possible action, discussion and possible action on a mayor pro tem. And I have asked, well, the tradition here is that the person who's been on the council the longest has taken this slot in the past, and that person in this case is Elise. And I asked Elise if she would be willing to do that, and she said she would. But and so I would like to get the affirmation of the rest of the council on that, but let's see if there's any discussion first. Yes, John has a discussion which looked like that. Anybody else?
Elise will do an amazing job.
Okay.
I was just expressing my support for Elise.
Yes, got it. Got it. Okay. Do we actually have to have a vote on this, Polly?
Yes, you need a vote, but it can just be a verbal emotion.
Okay. All in favor of Elise being the mayor pro tem, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, and Elise voted for it too. Good. All right. All right. Welcome, Mayor Pro Tem. Item 14, discussion of possible action accepting the appointment of the mayor to the Central Wasatch Commission. And this apparently is something we have to have a vote on also?
Yes, again, it can just be just a regular, a general
Okay.
roll call vote.
You're going to accept the appointment that the CWC has already passed a resolution on appointing you. So
Oh,
the
okay.
council is just going to express their support in you accepting that appointment.
All right. Any discussion on this? Okay.
My concern with this has always been the obligation to support whatever comes out of the back end of this.
Right.
And I'm not wildly enthused about us turning over our future to a commission that really isn't super closely connected to Alta. I wish they would let you attend as an observer or something like that, but that may be just my imagination. This has never been my favorite thing. A, I think they're trying to wind it up anyway, but B, the idea that you have to pledge to support whatever the group decides, I hate that.
John, is that still the case? I think that was the case for the predecessor agency, the Mountain Port. Did that constraint flow into the CWC?
I understand it that way, but maybe John Goldner knows better, or Polly.
I don't-
one on the CWC, so.
Roger, I don't think it's the case that you have to pledge to support any outcomes that the CWC, I mean, it's a political entity purely. So there could be, some sort of political pressure or something like that for you to support outcomes that the CWC is pursuing. But there's never been an obligation like in the assumption of a seat on the CWC that you support the outcomes. And I mean, in my experience, there has been disagreement amongst CWC members on various items under its consideration, or even projects that the CWC is pursuing directly, which is a part of what leads it, occasionally to come up short from having a big impact on things like, canyon transportation plans and things like that. But I think the way we've often looked at bodies like the CWC or Mountain Accord before was that if there's a body that is seeking to have influence on the Wasatch and thereby on Alta, that it's safer for us to be involved than not. And it's certainly true that the CWC is going through a period of transition, and what what it does in the future after Salt Lake County, steps out of its very significant contribution to funding the CWC and sitting on the board with two members on the CWC board. It kind of remains to be seen what the CWC is going to get up to in the future, as John just acknowledged. But
well, maybe it would be appropriate to have this group endorse my appointment to the Central Wasatch Commission with the proviso that we, the town of Alta, are not locked into whatever they decide is the direction they want to go.
I would add, Roger, that I think the next off ramp is when we do our budget. And if we decline to make a contribution to the CWC in the next fiscal year, then we would no longer be on the board.
Yeah. At the same time, at the same time, since this thing is focused on the Wasatch Range, which we are central to have no voice is not very smart either.
I'm looking at the language for the stakeholders on council rules, and it says council members shall support a consensus-based process for issues impacting the CWC's work and project area. So share information and be collaborative and allow others to express their opinions and viewpoints. So I guess it's the support a consensus-based process for issues impacting the work. I don't know. Maybe that's not as onerous as I perceived it. I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you think, Polly? Does that scare you, Polly?
No, I think just as Chris said, it's a political body, and I think I've heard grumblings about the consensus portion of it, but I think they're trying. It's hard with so many different viewpoints to try to move it forward. So I think it is important to be at the table on it. Alta is definitely central to what's happening in the Wasatch.
I suppose you could always resign your council membership if you were offended by the result, right?
Yeah, I think I
could
could.
no longer be bound by the agreement.
Yeah, I think that would be an escape route.
And the Stakeholders Council itself is a body that is a committee essentially of the CWC. They meet quarterly. It's comprised of like ski area. It's comprised of Central Wasatch Mountain stakeholders, but it is distinct from the actual board of the commission itself. So Roger will be a commissioner, but the town doesn't have any membership in the Stakeholders Council. Mike Mon is, I believe, a member of the Stakeholders Council. Nonprofit groups are, community council representatives, other advocacy groups, etc. And that consensus question, consensus is a lofty word that interlocal or intergovernmental groups like the CWC throw around, but sometimes you got to vote on a lot of stuff, and a vote is not a consensus building exercise. It's a vote, and that is how the CWC does business, regardless of what kind of consensus building might go on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, I certainly would vigorously oppose anything that was not in the interest of Alta. So that's where I'm coming from.
So should we have a motion to, do we need to have a motion on Roger accepting this?
No, it would be nice to have a vote of confidence that he can accept the appointment.
So moved.
Sure.
Hi.
I feel confident about you, Roger, being on the CWC. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And
Opposed?
Roger, It's going to be a lot of work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Great. And John, was that an opposed?
No, I voted for it. I mean,
Okay.
if you guys are comfortable with the language, I think it's just important that we're aware that this is in there.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
agree. All right, now there's one more of these things, which is discussion and possible action to appoint the mayor to the UFA. UFSA, Unified Fire Service Area Board of Trustees.
The mayor sits on both of those boards, the UFSA and the UFA. And this vote would be for the town council putting forth the mayor's name to serve on those two boards.
Okay. Any discussion on?
You have to, right? Like, if you're part of the UFSA, the mayor has to be on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I'm.
I thought it was like a condition of it. So
Somebody should sit on the board. I don't know that it has to be the mayor, but I think generally it is the mayor. So,
I think I'm the backup person for the UFSA when Harris couldn't attend, which never happened. But I do know, I remember that vote happening.
Yeah, and you would be named in this letter as well.
Yeah.
I think I sent that letter out to you.
Okay, so Elise is the alternate.
Yes, and it has to be an elected official, so yes.
All right. Unless someone else wants to take it. I don't see any hands up. All right, so let's all in favor of appointing me to be on the UFSA Board of Trustees.
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
None. Yeah, okay, none. Back to the mayor's report. Item 8 comes right after item 15. We've actually covered almost everything that was that I had to say. I think we have two very big deals in Alta, one very local, which is parking, and other very cosmic, which is the pandemic. And I think we've heard quite a bit about that. I'm interested to get this clarification of Angela Dunn's public health order with respect to lift lines. Are you comfortable with that, Carolyn?
From many standpoints, yes. I think that the wearing of masks is and the policing of such is utterly exhausting. We can't get patients and family members to wear masks in the hospital. And I think that asking the lift companies' customers to wear masks in the lift line when it's somewhat of a debatable issue is just exhausting. And having the police, having the patrol police that is difficult. I'm glad that we have signs in the in our lodges, and but I think that that's the best we can hope for. So I would love to see Ski Utah or somebody put out that that's what the public health department agrees to. So I think that would take away some of the angst from the ski resort. But Roger, I personally ski without a mask, and I personally wear a mask inside every building I go in, and an N95 or a PAPR when I walk in the hospital.
Well, you're probably the most qualified person here to speak to this, and I appreciate your expertise on this matter. My technique is just not go in buildings.
It's really sad, Roger. It's difficult, but I think we all witnessed some people that had difficulty following the rules, and I'm sure Mike has had those encounters. And it just leads to sort of disagreement. And if Angela Dunn says it's okay, I don't think we should ask for more than that.
Okay. Next item I have on my list was performing a budget committee fairly early on, and this is going to be a little bit different than what we've had before. John has indicated his willingness and interest, and certainly qualified to be on that budget committee. Elise also, and a person who's also very qualified but is not a member of the town council is Craig Highmark, who's willing to serve on that budget committee as well. And I think that's great. I would like to get more involvement of our citizens, and this is particularly when they have expertise in an area of importance to us. And if somebody comes along and says, hey, I'd like to work on this, and they're qualified to do it, I'm all for it. So I'm delighted with that. The census. Our dog numbers are tied to the census. The census of 2020 was, in my opinion, although I'm not seeing necessarily the preliminary results, I do know that the town essentially evacuated in mid-March when things shut down, and that the if indeed the census count was on who was here on April 1st, it's going to be unrepresentative of what the true population of this town is. And so for the purposes of our dog license numbers, which we'll have to establish here probably at the next meeting, I'm inclined to say pending a more an updated number for our census, that we assume that the population in 2020, in the absence of this upset, is the same as that in 2010 for the purposes of establishing our dog license numbers. Now, we don't have to establish those until the next meeting or so, but I compare our situation to some community which was absolutely devastated by fire, and one that comes to mind is Paradise, California. I mean, it was wiped out, and I think that was shortly before the 2020 census. And so, if the census was taken on April 1st, 2020, it would show the population of Paradise, California is 0. And yet it's been repopulated, or is in the process of being repopulated, and basically going back to where it was prior to that. And so my argument is that that's how we should treat this. Let's see. Coming up, we're going to work towards a capital expenditure plan for our water and sewer, and we have some meetings coming up that will work towards that goal. This will be at least a 5-year plan for our capital in that. John is spearheading that. And that's what
I just wanted to point out that was for the water fund. Is that right?
Yes,
it's a separate
for the water
from
fund.
general.
Yeah. Right, for the water fund.
Well, I'd say that we're starting with the water fund, and probably we've done the most homework on issues related to the water fund. I've never seen a wish list for the sewer fund. Is there such a wish list?
I think that Keith has ideas on what we could spend for the sewer fund. Yeah.
Oh, he has some dreams and ideas.
Dreams and ideas. Okay.
Well, Spurgeon has
Most
quite a bit of money in it, and I've never seen a study that's comparable to the engineering study that's from 2014 on the water fund, where that's pretty well organized. I think we should use that study as a starting place. John Milner, aren't you the sewer czar?
You're not supposed to read those parts of the ordinance. But yes, and that's one of the things we have to do. The service area so far has not really wanted to just take over our sewer like they do the water. But I think that I would like to concentrate on a formal agreement with them instead of just using a couple of their employees. So that, they do run our sewer as well. So that would make the sewer administrator's job even easier.
Yeah, we employ a sewer operator who is a part-time worker, but works full-time for the service area. That's Steve McIntosh. And another thing to keep in mind about the sewer fund is that we are responsible for, John, is it a quarter or is it less? We're responsible for a percentage of anything downstream from us. So if there's a big repair, big leak at 7 turns and there's $100,000 repair bill, we're responsible for a portion of that. Is that correct?
Correct. We paid for, we've got a 40% easement in the sewer line. We paid for 40% of the cost up to Snowbird and 100% of the cost from Snowbird to Alta. So we pay for 100% of our repairs. And then depending on, we're not using our 40%, it's like 25 to 27%. But we split that cost with the service area to the treatment center downtown. So whatever the current annual or the most current annual split is, if there's $100,000 repair down Canyon, we're paying our 27 or 25% of that repair.
Right. And then Salt Lake County would also be responsible for some of that, or no, because we're the only 2 entities putting into that?
Oh, no, just us 2.
Oh, okay. All right.
Then there are a couple of things, I guess, that are there's some existing leaks that we need to repair or could repair. And then there's also the question of the West Grizzly. Are we going to run a line up West Grizzly? How are we going to pay for that? Get a new main up to those folks?
So I want to say that we've got some dips, but we don't have any leaks.
Yeah.
Yes. Excuse me.
So and the dips, it's in the gold miners parking lot area by the entry ramp road. It's like 35 feet deep. It doesn't really compromise the system. I mean, if we fix that, we wouldn't really see that much of a change. It's not like the system is going to fail because we clean it out. It's wide enough, or it's thick enough that it doesn't compromise anything yet. So that wouldn't be the greatest area of emphasis, although it's the one thing on the list. It's been on the list for the last number of years. But we did
also express concern about the people in West Grizzly being so close to the Bay City mine that worrying about contamination issues there. Piper, that's his issue, right?
Yes, he doesn't like that fact. Yes.
Right.
So that would be like the biggest reason to get a main up to them, is so that they were stopped using holding tanks proximate to the Bay City mine.
Or they could pay for a lateral that would go down to the main, which is down on the tow road.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty long lateral.
Yeah.
It'd be and right now it would be a pretty long main line. And then when we get within a certain area, 200 feet of their houses, then that would be their lateral. But it's a really long main line because the sewer isn't right at the bottom of their hill.
No.
And we do have a study. We did have someone do a study that was kind of pushed and sanctioned by the Planning Commission. So we have some estimates of where the best place would be. And costs, it's been a while, but the location wouldn't change, but the costs have changed probably a lot.
Seems to me that this is an opportunity for a cost sharing proposal, perhaps, to come from those homeowners, offering to share the cost of getting the main up there. and then pay for their own lateral attachment. And I can
Right,
see
and
the town-
that's the key.
What's
If we
that?
put the main lateral up, if we put the main lateral up there and got within 200 feet of their houses, they'd be stuck with varying expenses based on the length of their laterals, which would be maybe a big hit to them. So it would take some finessing to get the buy-in on the extension of the lateral. at the same
And we
time.
sure wouldn't want to
The
pay
main-
for the main if there wasn't buy-in from the cabin owners ahead of
not.
time.
All right,
Of course not.
You know,
Maybe if they got lifelong parking with their name on it and everything, we
nobody
could
gets
sort of-
that.
Can
That
we
starts
back
with
up?
the town staff and then,
Can we back up for just a sec on the, because I think Roger's about to adjourn. Chris, is the appeal process for the census still ongoing?
So there is something called the census question resolution process or something like that. There is a sort of constrained appeal opportunity that is part of every decennial census cycle. There's a lot of interest in it this year because of what happened with COVID in ski resort communities, university communities. I mean, communities where there is sort of transient congregate housing, and you know, we're not the only one. And I've like attended a couple webinars about the process. The process is open for a couple years. I don't know. There are a couple of things that a community or a city can test within this process, and it's not like you can just say to the Census Bureau, our population was 383 in 2010, and it was, you know, you can't just contest the number, but you can, I believe you can ask for an evaluation of the number of housing units. It's not a slam dunk opportunity, and it would take some work, but there is an opportunity that we could take to reconsider some aspect of this, of what the census produced. So it's out there. I mean, it's on the sort of the long list of things to do. I think the approach that Roger described is the one that I've been envisioning for this upcoming dog license process, where we sort of just acknowledge a different standard than we've used in the past. So something to talk about.
Was there also a re-canvassing option?
Like, not exactly, if I understand what you mean by that. I don't know that you can just have another census count taken. There may be an opportunity to like essentially provide pay for your own, but I shouldn't try to speak.
That's what I thought it was you could pay some price and they would come and re-canvass you. You know, with the, nobody's really done the math to say what's the difference in tax revenue going to be. But, you know, I think that would be a fairly straightforward break even between what are we going to lose in tax revenue and how much would it cost to redo the census?
Right.
Yeah, I know the dog license is really important, but the census is also very important for funding for the town. And so I think that's a reason to make sure. I guess I haven't seen their numbers yet to see how drastically different it is. I guess it depends on what they come out with. If we try to pay for another count, if that's an option, but we should definitely try to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, didn't you have a tentative number?
Well, it's 228. That's
Right.
you know, I haven't seen anything from the Census Bureau, but the state, the Kem Gardner Policy Institute, and to some extent also the state, you know, have essentially provisional redistricting data, which is where you get that, where you get those local population counts, and that 228 was the number.
I think there are other ways to deal with the dog licensing numbers. I mean, we can change our ordinance, and we should work with Salt Lake, with the watershed, the Salt Lake City Public Utilities, to see if we, what their thoughts are. But there might be other reasons why you want to readdress the census for other applications, but the numbers are, if you have 50 more people in the town of Alta, that's not going to make a significant, when you're talking about 228 versus 400, the amount of money you get from that, the percentage when you compare to other towns is minuscule. So I don't know how helpful it would be, how much it changes other things. If it's only for this issue, I think there's another way to skin the cat.
Well, and Elise is right. It would be for every funding issue, but like sales tax and other things, for the sales tax from the state, we do have a hold harmless. We now have a permanent hold harmless, thanks to Wayne Niederhauser. So, because the downtown people wanted to amend the sales tax distribution. We used to be like 75% population and 75% point of sale, 25% population. They wanted to amend it so that it was more heavily on population, which would have killed us. So we got a hold harmless in the early 80s, and it was set to expire. And Niederhauser made it permanent for us, Park City, Springdale, Moab. So we're pretty good on the sales tax, but still, I mean, if it's a certain percentage based on population, that will hurt us. So we have to look at that formula. And the dogs is easy. We could just, we could, like Polly has said, we could set a number. We could be the same number. We could change the percentage of the population figure, so we can keep the same number. That's pretty easy and we can deal with that, but kind of want to see what the repercussions are of losing 100 and some people, 150 people.
Yeah.
I agree with Elise. That I think this is an important issue.
It's a big deal.
So do I.
Okay, I've come to the end of my mayor's report, except to say that the next meeting will be in next month on the second Wednesday and 4 o'clock, which is I think what we agreed on. Although we'll readdress future meetings. There's a new business part of the agenda now, which means that anybody on the council can bring anything up that hasn't been brought up or even that has been brought up.
Mayor, I'm wondering if you'd take a quick staff comment.
Say that again?
I'm wondering if you'd accept a quick staff comment.
Of course.
I just wanted to add to the thank yous on this parking thing. Our legal team, Polly and Cameron, they have been up all night with us, weekends, holidays, round the clock. They have really kept us honest, and they've worked rapidly, and they had not been acknowledged to the degree that they deserve.
And they should be deserved. Well done. Extremely well done.
Yeah.
You're here. Okay, anything else in the way of new business? In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn 12 minutes before the scheduled time.
Bravo, Mayor.
So moved.
You all are excellent.
Any
It's gonna be a great
objections?
4 years.
All right. Okay, we're
Good job,
adjourned.
everybody.
Yes,
Good night, everybody.
Hi.
newly elected.
Congratulations, Roger.
Excellent
Well
meeting.
done.
Congratulations, Elise.
Well done, everybody.
So happy about your news.
Okay,
I
good
guess we
night.
don't need a motion to adjourn, Roger?
Oh,
Didn't we get a motion?
moved.
Oh, do we
I
have-
moved
I
it.
think it was moved by at least Sheridan.
I
Okay,
think
we did
Elise
it.
moved and I
Yeah.
seconded.
All
okay,
right.
thank you, sorry.
And it was unanimously,
The crowd erupted with joy.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Good night.
Night.
Good night.